Hello everyone, welcome back. Episode 16 of our Pro Touring Trans Am project. As you can see behind me, we've got quite a bit of work done here since where we left off our last video. So let me get the camera turned around here and I'll show you where we are and I'll show you what we still have left to do. So as you can see here, we have done a lot of work hanging the sheet metal on the car, kind of making it look like a complete car. Again, it's sitting on our jack stands here, so all of the weight of the car is on the car, so we can kind of get all of our gaps adjusted. So what we've done, we haven't done anything here to this side. The passenger side's actually already started. But as you can see here, remember we did aftermarket quarter panels. These are brand new doors. So what we do is we try to get that door gap as close as we can at this point, and then we come back in and we'll really start fine tuning it. Like this here, you can see is a lot wider gap here than what it really needs to be, and then it kind of closes up a little bit. So we'll fine tune this door a little bit more on this side before we actually go in and do any cutting or welding. But what we've done is we started at the back of the car. We went ahead and put the new fiberglass rear bumper on, the deck lid, the spoilers, the tail light housings, just to double check, fit all this stuff up, make sure that it's pretty close. Now the corner pieces on our spoilers are still loose. We can adjust those. So you'll see here the gap on this is not right. We'll finish that up in the next stage and more the bodywork side of things. What we're really focusing on at this point is making sure there's any metal work needs to be done. So again, the quarter panel doesn't move. The deck lid we adjusted as close as we could get it. We had a really wide gap up here. So we actually had to weld some material here to the deck lid from this front corner about halfway down here, and then we take and grind and flat file all of that back down to get this gap just as uniform as we can possibly get it. Again, on this side of the deck lid, didn't have to really do a whole lot to the deck lid, but we actually had to bump this quarter over just a little bit to kind of widen this out. The gap got a little bit tight right up here. Again, all typical stuff with aftermarket sheet metal. It's just part of the process. That's what you have to do. Moving over to the passenger door, you can see here we've done quite a bit of work over here. As I showed you there on the driver's door a while ago, we had to add some material here to this door. So we actually take a MIG welder and add some material here to this. Again, flat file it down, grind it, smooth it back out to where we have a nice, consistent, uniform 3/16 gap all the way down that door. And why we're going for a 3/16 is because once we still have to do body work, we still have to prime, we have to paint, and then clear. So all of those are going to add a little bit of material to those edges, and it'll actually close that up just a little bit more. On the bottom of this quarter here, we actually had to cut the quarter and kind of bump this back over. That quarter panel got just a little bit long inside the door and really tightened that gap up. And then you can also see here that we fit up the new year one spoiler here on this quarter. So we've got our holes drilled there. We've actually got that bolted in, and then put some little self-tapping screws here on the inside edge just to hold that pretty much like you would have, same way as the factory. So we've got that gap set. We moved up here to the front, from the front fender to the door. A very similar scenario, having to add some material here to this fender and really kind of closing this up just a little bit. Not a whole lot. Maybe you can see there, literally maybe 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch of material there just to kind of close that up. And then you'll notice here that this does not line up. Now this is an aftermarket door. This is an original fender. What we'll do is we'll fit the hood on, get it all adjusted, and then we'll come back in and adjust our curvature. So if we need to either take material away from the fender, or if we need to add material here to the door to get that to where it all lines back up with the hood. So talking about the fenders, let me show you what we've did here under the hood with the fenders. While we were working on the front fender up here, one of the things that we also did and modified just a little bit was the top of our fender, the way it bolts on. So you can see here, this was the tab that was actually welded to this fender right here, and you see how big the hole is there. Really big hole. We don't, have that Factory is a big square hole like that, so you have plenty of adjustment. But we want this fender, once we get it bolted on, I mean, we want it to bolt where it's going to stay. So we cut this out. We actually fabricated another piece of metal here, a little bit bigger. And as you can see, just kind of reshaped this whole area here. And then we knocked our metal down so we don't have any shims underneath here from the fender to the cowl there, or from the fender to the firewall. We also had to cut and reshape that a little bit as well. So we cut and moved this back, and we did both of these pieces out of 14 gauge sheet metal. So it's a really thick metal that kind of matches this factory inner structure here. And again, just trying to do away with all the factory shims and stuff here. These cars were put together real sloppy from the factory, so we're cleaning that up a little bit. And then it also, once we kind of test fitted the Ring Brothers billet hood hinges. We was having a little bit of interference back here. It was really tight at the very back of the fender where it was factory. So that helps allow us to get us a good flat surface there. We have plenty of room to get those in and adjust those. So we did that on both sides of both fenders already. So once we was working on one, we went ahead and done the other. So again, you can see there's no shims behind the brackets there from the top or on the bottom. And that's what we really wanted to do. One of the things here too, you'll notice on this fender, these fenders, I don't know if this is a different year or one of these is the aftermarket, but this fender you can see has the big holes here. So like you would have a clip that would slide in there, and then your hood hinge actually bolt to that. Whereas on this fender, it's actually made, the little nuts are welded into the fender. So we're going to have to go back in. I like that look a lot better. I'm not really sure what's going on with this side here, but we'll go back in and fix and modify this fender so it kind of matches the other side. So while we're underneath the engine bay here, you can see here we do have the inner fenders in, so we're kind of getting an idea of what we want to do under the hood of this car. Again, the hood shaker here is just kind of sitting on top of the engine. This LSA engine here, we do have clearance, looks like. We've had the hood just setting up here just to double check and make sure. So what my plans are is to set this factory style shaker up here, and it'll actually have to come up a little bit, and we'll solid mount that to the motor. So it'll actually be, you know, a functioning shaker there like the factory would be when it's all said and done. While we're underneath the hood, like I said, we're just kind of planning out what all we want to do here. I'm going to clean up these inner fenders. Now these are just our same epoxy primer that we put on the body. We're going to come in, and while we've got it to this stage, we can really plan out what we want to do here under the hood as far as our hose routing, our wire routing, how our breather is going to come over, and really just kind of plan out this engine bay here and clean everything up a lot more than what you have stock. So as you can see here, we have a pretty big opening here on our inner fenders down to our A-arms. I think we're going to come in here, we're going to cut this and bring this down closer to the frame rail here, make some closeout panels here from where the hood hinge bolts from down behind that, kind of close in that area back there behind between the fender, the inner fender, and the firewall. Going to clean that area up on both sides. Of course, on this side, we still have to get our brake situation took care of. Our steering column will have to come through. Of course, our factory wiring. We do have a new wiring harness, but it'll actually utilize that same hole there. So again, this is the stage where we kind of do all of that, kind of clean up what we're going to clean up, modify what we have to modify, and before, you know, we pull everything back apart for final paint and body work. So what we're going to do at this point, I'm going to quit my rambling. We're going to move over here to the driver's side, do my final adjustments here on this door, get it as close as I can. We'll start our gapping from the quarter panel to the door here, and then once we get that done, move forward from the fender to the door on this side. Get those done. We'll get the hood bolted back on, get it all adjusted, make sure we get our gaps up there just right, and everything's good to go. So I'm gonna get the camera set up here and just kind of hyperlapse it. You can kind of watch this, watch me work. So let's talk about the trunk for a minute on this car. On this car, we're going to do a trunk mounted battery. So what we've got is just a aftermarket, I think this actually come from eBay or Amazon or something, just an Optima battery mount. So we've got a cardboard template here made out for that to mount to the floor. We're going to do this out of some thicker gauge sheet metal, probably like a 14 or a 16 gauge sheet metal. I think I've got some 14 that I'll probably do it out of. And we'll make this out of two pieces. When we fabricate it, we're actually going to fabricate it out of one piece of sheet metal. And then we've got our holes and stuff marked there where the mount will actually sit down. We'll have to weld some nuts to the bottom of that, so this plate will actually bolt to this mount here, and then you can remove it for paint, whatever we decide to do here on the trunk as far as carpet, undercoating, or whatever. So let's go ahead and take this paper pattern here and transfer that over to some sheet metal, get it cut out, bent, and some holes drilled to where we can get our mounts actually where it'll mount together. So what we have here is a piece of 14 gauge sheet metal. So we're going to lay our poster board pattern out on here and kind of get this pattern traced out. This is a pretty simple pattern. We're going to start with our bigger piece here, and we do know this is in two different pieces. Go ahead and just take a felt tip Sharpie and trace around the outside area here or our poster board. Now, you could also lay this out if you had a CNC plasma table, or a water jet or something of that nature, which we do not have. So we're going to take that once we've got this. I'm going to lay this out here and show you how we're going to take this and make this a one-piece pattern. I'm going to take this area and line back up. Even though we did it in two pieces, we want to actually cut this out into one piece. We'll fold that back there. And we'll mark that bend. And then this was a straight shot all the way across here. So that's what we're going to do. We've got our pattern cut out. We know I'm going to go ahead and mark for our bends here, there, there. Then once we get this cut out, we'll go back in and we'll remark for our holes where it actually mounts our battery tray up to that. So now that we got our piece cut out, we've got our holes drilled, we've got it bent up into shape, let's take this and go ahead and test fit this into the car to make sure that it's going to fit before we go any further, to make sure there's no more modifications that need to be done. Looks like everything fits up just like it should. Now what we'll do is we'll come back in and we'll actually weld this seam up here. And so that'll be a complete one-piece deal. So we'll weld that. Once we fit our battery tray on here and get our nuts welded to the bottom side of that, while we have it in the car here, I'm going to go ahead and take my felt tip and go around the perimeter of this. That way we know where we need to grind the paint off, so we can actually weld this to the floor and make it a good solid mount. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish marking this out here. Then we'll go in and we'll weld the nuts to the bottom side of our new plate that we fabricated. Now with our nuts welded onto the back side of our plate, we sprayed a little primer on that. Also went back in and welded up the couple of holes there that we made from our last video where we had to remove those exhaust hangers from the bottom side to clear the frame. So now that we've got this piece welded up, we should be ready to fit this in here one last time and get it welded in. So as you can see there, we do have the hood fit, and you've seen us doing some cutting and welding there, getting the gaps right on the fender. I'm not going to talk about why we did that. So as you can see here, if we're looking down the side of the car, one of the things is why we started at the back and worked our way forward. So again, we set our gaps at the back door, front of the door, get the fender lined up with that. And a couple of things that we're doing while we're doing that and setting our gaps. We're looking at the gap between our A-post and the top of the door. We're also making sure that this door doesn't stick out just tremendously too far out away from the A-post, and we don't want to get it in too close. We've got a nice gap right there that we can work with. So once we get the door where we want it, then we go back in and set the fender to where it lines up. And these cars from the factory have a tendency for this fender to want to bulge out away from that that door there on both sides. So as you can see here, we've got it to where it's really, really close to being flush. Anything that we've got there, we can kind of work out in the bodywork stage. But by bringing the fender in to match up to the door, either in or out, these cars always get really, really tight up here. All the ones that I've ever done is having a really, really tight gap between the hood and the fender. So we come back in, we actually cut the fender as you've seen us do there. We took a little bit of a splice out of that, then knocked it over, re-welded it. We've done that on both sides. So as you can see there, we've got a nice, pretty nice consistent gap all the way through. And then once we go back in and clean all of our welds up, it'll be even nicer. And the same thing here on the passenger side as well. Same issues with it. Just kind of cut, moved it over, and re-welded. So now that we've got all that done, we'll clean our welds up. And the next thing that I want to do is come in and I'll address our curvature from the back of the hood over to the doors. So as you can see here, our fender is way too tall. Not going to leave it looking like that. We want a nice, even, consistent radius from our door edge to our hood. So we're going to go back in and we're going to work that. And you can also see here too that we do have that engine actually did clear and lined up perfect with our hole in the hood there for that supercharger. So once we get our hood scoop, we can actually solid mount it to the engine, and it'll actually act as a functioning spoiler. We did install the new Ring Brothers billet hood hinges. These hinges worked out really good. They may be hard to see there. They are the black aluminum finish. But you can see, I'm going to reach out just one-handed, and I can shut this hood, and there's no buckling. I mean, it's literally one-handed operation here. You can't do that with your factory hinges at all. A lot of times you actually have to grab and kind of push back on the hood to actually shut them the way they're designed. But this, easy operation. So really excited about those hinges. So we're going to go in, probably go ahead and wrap this video up here. We'll go in off camera and fix our gaps and stuff up there, or clean up our welds and adjust our curvature there on the back of the hood to the fender. Get all that done. We'll come back in. We're going to be working underneath the hood, kind of getting everything there that we need to do. We're going to go ahead and start mounting our air conditioning system. There's some brackets there that I want to weld onto the firewall. And just kind of clean up some holes and whatnot so we don't have bolts and stuff going through the firewall. Just little stuff. Going to be working on some of that kind of stuff and just kind of see where it goes. We're getting this thing ready to where we can get it back into the bodywork stage and get this thing finished up and be getting it ready for paint. So a little bit more fab work to do. We're going to knock all that out first. So hope you enjoyed it. Maybe you learned something, and we will catch you on the next one. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. Hey, be sure to go by our store on the YouTube page and go by and check out the latest and greatest merchandise there. We've got some newly designed hats and shirts up there, some hoodies, some decals. Go by, check it out, grab yourself some official Rogers Rod Works merchandise. Hey, and if you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button. You can be notified of any of our latest content that we put out. And speaking of content, we've got something coming up we're working on. I've had several people ask about doing a shop tour. So we're going to do a shop tour. We're going to do some interviews with the guys in the shop, maybe even the secretary, my wife. We'll see if we can get her on camera. Hey, if there's anything else you'd like to see, drop it down in the comments, questions you want answered, and we'll try to hit all those points. So do that for me. The store, subscribe, leave some comments there of what you want to see on our shop tour.